The Dungeon Beneath is a roguelike, party-based, dungeon-crawling, turn-based strategy game where you delve into the depths, assembling, upgrading and equipping a party to fight a wide range of increasingly powerful monsters before trying to defeat the evil god Abaddon. Or, if you're one of those people who really cares about their favourite definition of a particular word, then The Dungeon Beneath is a permadeath, party-based dungeon-crawling turn-based strategy game where you delve into the depths, assembling, upgrading and equipping a party to fight a wide range of increasingly powerful monsters before trying to defeat the evil god Abaddon. And no point delaying, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good game. And so that I can get on to explaining why it's good, let's explain how it works. When you start the game, you will pick your main character or hero, and their unique ability and starting artifact combination will be the foundation for your strategy in this run. As an example, the hero Mariana starts with an artifact that allows all their party members to keep 1 armor on top of their health at the end of a turn, when usually unused armor disappears. And their unique ability is to summon a raven called Jack at the start of every fight for a bit of extra damage. So any bonuses that improve summons or grant armor, whether those be equipment, artifacts or abilities of new party members, are going to be slightly stronger as a result of Mariana being your hero. You need to know what a hero is first, because the only way you can lose in the Dungeon Beneath is if your hero dies. But also, the only way you can win any fight is by killing the enemy hero. You have a party and they have minions, but like kings in chess, it's which hero survives that determines who the winner is. And it gives every single fight in the game the feeling of a tense mini boss battle. So how do the fights actually work? In every fight, your party is arranged on a 6-tile grid with 3 lanes, and in each lane there is a front and back position. Behind these 6 tiles is a larger rectangular space that only your hero can occupy, but they can be moved up and down into any of the lanes. On the other side of the screen, the enemies have the exact same grid of 6 tiles and the hero space behind. This is another game like Rogue Summoner that I talked about quite recently, that has drawn inspiration from the recent genre of auto-battlers, in that you don't control individual turns, you set up your party and play out an entire turn in a single clip. When you press attack, every unit in the fight, including the heroes, takes a turn to attack with the order of moves determined by the unit's speeds. On their turn, a unit will always attack the closest enemy in the same lane. For example, a fighter in the middle lane will attack the first enemy also in the middle lane. But if there is no enemy in front of them, they will instead directly attack the opposing hero. This logic is true for your party members, enemy monsters, your hero and the enemy hero, and what that results in is a battle system that is mostly deterministic. I say mostly because some monsters will have abilities like attacking a random enemy instead of one in their lane, or moving at the end of their turn to a random open tile, and if a monster has one of these abilities you can see it in advance by hovering over them with the mouse. But even in the presence of these monsters, the scope of the fight is still predictable, and this is where the strategy comes in. By positioning your party at the start of a fight based on what you can predict will unfold, and repositioning your units in between turns to respond to deaths, kills or any of the light RNG elements, you can give yourself an advantage to win the fight. And even on just a 6, 7, 9 tile grid, however you want to define it, there's a huge amount of tactical advantage that you can gain with good planning. The last part of the game that needs explaining is your party. When you pick your hero, you'll automatically be given 3 additional party members. 2 of them will be weak generic followers, and 1 is specific but not unique to the hero you choose. For example, the Elder Grix and Taz Jin both start with Aguatilis, aka Archer Emissary of the Gorgonites. Just look at him. Throughout the dungeon you'll find campfires where you can ditch your rubbish followers and assemble a more powerful party up to a maximum of 5, including your hero. Each party member will have a race and class, and it's all the usual stuff you'd expect from a fantasy video game. Elves, dwarves, men and beasts who can be archers, mages and fighters. But they all have attributes for health, attack and speed, as well as having a special ability, and it's the combination of the attributes and the ability that defines a character far more than their race or class. As you progress, you can level up your party members with experience potions dropped from enemy heroes, and equip them with items to better tailor their stats to your party's benefit. Your party members can die, and they frequently will, but it's more like being knocked out. If your hero dies, you lose the game, but if a party member dies, then they're just gone for the rest of the fight. The only major downside is that party members can't drink experience potions after a fight in which they were killed. But often it will still be worth moving someone in front of a fatal attack to avoid your hero taking damage. As a side note, I love the fact that your people don't actually die in the dungeon beneath. One of the most annoying parts of party-based games is when you put time and resources, and in some cases emotional investment, into a character, only for them to die and be replaced by a nobody that you don't care about. That risk of death is supposed to increase the tension and provide big moments, but frequently the main feeling in those moments is just frustration. You couldn't have that in the dungeon beneath because you need to be willing to throw your units into harm's way to protect your hero, and your party would lose its identity if you had to constantly replace characters. And that is how the game works. You have a hero, you build a party around them, and you fight in these interesting semi-deterministic turn-based battles. The main plus is a huge amount of variety in how you can build your party. Starting with your hero's bonuses and adding the abilities of potential party members, the artifacts you gain after defeating bosses, or the items available to you when you find merchants or witches or chests, results in a huge number of different combinations. One of the best parts of tactical roguelike games, or tactical permadeath games, is crafting synergies, and the dungeon beneath gives you so many options to build these strategies. So I mentioned earlier that the hero Mariana starts with an artifact that gives a boost to armor. The Armor Smith is a human fighter with low damage, but at the end of every turn they grant bonus armor to a random ally in their lane. So their ability is given a boost if Mariana is your hero. Following on, the Sword Dancer, an elf fighter, has the ability that their attacks have bonus damage as long as they're at full health. So if you can give armor to a Sword Dancer, then their health might stay at maximum for longer even if they take damage, meaning that they can deal more damage themselves. So having a Sword Dancer in the same lane as an Armor Smith could not only improve their defense, but also their attacking output. Some of the synergies are really obvious. A mage who summons allied creatures obviously works well with another mage who gives bonus damage to summoned units. But what you might only realise as you play is that the weak doves summoned by the low-level mage still count as allies. So the ability of Aguatilis, which gives them +2 power whenever an ally dies, is activated by the death of a weak 1 HP summoned dove. I had a party with Agualitis where I had a mage pack out the board with summons to get expendable bodies in the way of enemy attacks. I found an artifact that conjured a friendly ghost the first time an ally died, which usually was a summon, so even when that summon died, I still had 6 units attacking. I bought a magic ring for my mage that would conjure a flame ember if he was killed that gets to make one last attack before dying, and I had a high health dwarf that I used as a tank. The focus was on packing my side of the board with bodies to block attacks, and giving Agualitis every item I could find to massively increase their damage. But not only did those summons and conjures and embers keep Agualitis alive to deal a lot of damage, every time one of them died, he dealt even more damage in the next attack. A lot of the fun comes from creating these cool synergies from the range of ability types in the game. And that is just the party building. When you're in a battle, there's still strategy to be found by positioning and moving units, even on such a small board. Maybe you position to just stack damage straight against the enemy hero, or maybe you think you need to kill the minions quickly first. Moving units around to prevent deaths or protect your hero is also important, and there's big potential for game-saving plays. Although sometimes they do take a little bit of thinking and just a splash of mental arithmetic. There's a huge amount of depth, and it feels like there's a lot of potential for you to keep getting better. The difficulty level is also really good. In the early game you feel like you should be able to take enough punches to start piecing together a decent team, but it ramps up towards the very end, especially in the final boss fight. If you reach the end, you unlock a New Game Plus for higher difficulties, and I can see from the achievement that that goes all the way up to New Game Plus 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 Plus, which, based on the difficulty I've seen, sounds impossible. But there's also a New Game Minus option if you need a little bit of a hand getting to grips with the Dungeon Beneath style. There's also a quality of life feature, which is the ability to reset any fight once. If you've made a big mistake or misunderstood an enemy action because you hadn't seen them before, then instead of dying in frustration, you can reset that fight and try again, allowing you to better learn your enemy actions and giving you an option to reassess your strategy. There's also a huge range of enemies that you can encounter in the dungeon who fight with very different styles. a dragon that attacks and then moves and gets stronger every turn, or a spooky magical creature that deals a random status effect as an attack. But there's also weird stuff, like a genie that gains 15 armor every turn, deals damage equal to its current armor, and can only be killed by destroying a static vase. So you have to balance attacking the vase to kill the genie, with damaging its armor enough to stop each attack from being an instant kill. This is a great strategy game, it's a great party-based permadeath RPG, it's got really interesting tactical elements and a unique gameplay style. I'm also a fan of the way the game looks. I like the decision to go for a cute, slightly silly pixel art style. Another strength of the visuals though is that they're clean and easily readable. The backgrounds give the dungeon character, but also let the focus be on the units and the grid. The large spaces either side of the map are for information about your heroes or enemies when you hover over them. If there are any specific terms on a character's page, they also get defined on the same screen. Pressing A shows everyone's health and attack, and pressing D highlights the turn order. You'll frequently need all of this information, and it's just a great quality of life feature to have it all easily accessible without menus. There are so many parts of the Dungeon Beneath that feel like details from other really solid indie roguelikes. The near perfect information reminds me of Into the Breach, and so does the single-use reset button. The artifacts remind me of relics from Slay the Spire. Units needing to be positioned at the front or back to attack reminds me of Darkest Dungeon. And the final boss fight against Abaddon has the same change in scale as facing the flagship in Faster Than Light. I'm not saying these are direct inspirations for each mechanic in this game, just that there are clearly solid ideas that have worked before being brought together really well in this game in a combination with all the new ideas. Overall, I think if you enjoyed games like Slay the Spire, Faster Than Light or Into the Breach, then this is well worth checking out as a game that shares a bit of its vibe with all of those three big indie hits. The hero mechanic is a really smart twist in the gameplay, party creation is excellent, the combat is satisfying, and the Dungeon Beneath has great replayability. Dungeon crawling indie roguelikes may be everywhere, but this is one that I can definitely recommend. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video or found it useful, and if you want to hear about more exciting indie titles in the future, why not subscribe to the channel and get notified about future videos. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.